trying, they were talking about court, you know what I mean? And you already know I didn't go today because I was like, I mean,
So they canceled it.
yeah, like we saw where they like had moved it to January. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even really see
I
a
mean,
reason to go. You know what I
no,
mean?
not if they moved it. Yeah, not if they moved it. I wouldn't see any reason why.
Yeah. So,
I mean, at this point, it's just in the court's hands. I mean, a lot of people are, think it's strange that she got a continuance. I don't necessarily think it's strange. I do find it strange that it's on the type of, you know, charges that they are. But, I feel like maybe they're working on something that'll, be a alternative, kind of agreement between everybody. And that's kind of what I think maybe is going on. Who knows?
yeah, I mean, I honestly don't find it super strange that they did give her a continuance. Like I was telling them, everybody has a right to appeal anything, right? So let her appeal it.
Yeah, I didn't know that you could, appeal those types of charges. You know what I mean? I didn't know that was an appealable thing, but apparently it is. I was just unaware that you could appeal a violation of an order.
I am kind of with you on that, but I don't think she's appealing the violations. I think what she's trying to appeal are the orders themselves, which I'm not going to lie, that kind of irritates me because, truth, as well as I do, if this were a situation where she was a man and it was a woman who had taken it out, it would not go down that way.
I mean, I would venture to say that that's probably true. However, in this situation, I think that there's some rarities that aren't in normal situations, right? And I think that the court is going to take a look at that. I also think that maybe, I don't know. We'll see. My personal views versus what reality is may not necessarily be the same. So I think that at this point, because the court isn't being as aggressive as I think some people think they should, maybe that should tell everybody something. You know what I mean? I don't know. It seems odd.
Well, a part of me questions, like, is the media circus to blame for any of that, right?
It could be.
You know what I mean?
I mean, maybe. I mean, that case is not as important as Sebastian's case in any way, shape, or form. And I think people feel, in general, a little bit of a frustration with law enforcement from Sumner County from multiple directions. And I think that this just kind of adds a little bit to it just for some people. I think it also helps for some people, right? It just depends on how you're looking at it.
I agree with Twin Thing. Yes, she's appealing the POs. No reason to appeal the violations. They haven't been heard yet. I agree with that.
Right.
However, yeah. I am kind of with you, and I didn't even think that you could appeal a PO. Well, you have like 10 days, right? Yes. And it's kind of weird that they even have the first 3 in there, because I'm telling you, like, sitting in that courtroom hearing it myself, the judge was like, I have already made my ruling on these. We are not going back. You know what I mean? So I kind of hope, for her sake, Honest Engine, that Judge Thompson doesn't see a need for them, because if he does, and then she has to flip back to go to Blanton to then hear the violations after you literally just did an appeal to try to go over his head and get rid of them, you're probably going to be in a little hot water. I think it's a gamble. You know what I mean? And
I would hope that.
Go ahead.
I would hope that the judge wouldn't take things personal, right? I would hope that the judge has more integrity than to take cases personal. And if you're making a decision based on personal feelings as opposed to the law, I think that's a little bit risky. You have the right in the United States to appeal a conviction, right?
But you only have a certain number of days, right?
Well, that's what we know. That's what we know to be the facts from our position, right? But there could be something that we don't know about, and there has to be. There's not that there could be, there has to be. Otherwise, the court wouldn't continue to put off a case. If the judge's ruling was there and it was going to stand regardless, then why wouldn't the judge just make the decision? Right. So I feel like there's something going on that is keeping that from following through as of yet.
Yeah. And that's actually not totally true, Sandra. She still is under the protective order. She can't stalk and harass them, etc. Right? I mean, they still are in effect, right? They just haven't heard the part about the violations, and they also haven't heard her appeal. But whatever. I ain't never seen somebody can't stand somewhere so bad but want to stay there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it also looks like the judge she was supposed to go in front of didn't even have any other cases on the docket for the day. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, because like, so the way they do it here, contrary to belief, Betty, the town is not full of nothing but fucking criminals. They have like civil on one day, 2 days or whatever, and then criminal the other 2 days. I don't know, it's something like that. I'd have to look at it all again, but I don't know that Thompson does do civil things, or he used to anyway, because I mean, we've dealt with him for that, but
I think there's a lot of theories going around. I think it's interesting that she looked rather nervous the last couple of days, and then I mean, I would probably be nervous too, regardless of whether I thought I was right or wrong. You still are kind of putting your chances in the hands of a courtroom. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, I just can't see the county doing the things that they're doing and continually offsetting the decision if there wasn't a reason.
Charming said,
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Charming said, so I saw the real Me Too commented in her chat for everyone to pray Sebastian is found so she wouldn't have to go back to court.
The court has nothing to do with Sebastian being found.
That's kind of where I stand on that too, right? Y'all know how I am. I mean, I don't care if it turns out that Chris and Katie are guilty. At the time that you were stalking and harassing them, they are free citizens. They have not been accused by law enforcement. They have not been named suspects by law enforcement. We have only heard from law enforcement that there is no foul play. So therefore, they are just citizens. And I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on in this case, right? I don't care who you think is guilty, who you think is not guilty, and maybe you just don't know, or there's no one guilty. Sebastian just walked away. You cannot harass a private citizen. Period. That what basically what she's trying to insinuate, I think, with that comment, and her audience probably does agree.
Reason.
Charming said, so yeah. Charming said, so I saw the real Me Too commented in her chat for everyone to pray Sebastian is found so she wouldn't have to go back to court.
The court has nothing to do with Sebastian being found.
That's kind of where I stand on that too, right? Y'all know how I am. I mean, I don't care if it turns out that Chris and Katie are guilty. At the time that you were stalking and harassing them, they are free citizens. They have not been accused by law enforcement. They have not been named suspects by law enforcement. We have only heard from law enforcement that there is no foul play. So therefore, they are just citizens. And I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on in this case, right? I don't care who you think is guilty, who you think is not guilty, and maybe you just don't know, or there's no one guilty. Sebastian just walked away. You cannot harass a private citizen. Period. That what basically what she's trying to insinuate, I think, with that comment, and her audience probably does agree, that as long as I believe you're guilty of something, I am allowed to harass you. And I think that's bullshit. Like, that's utter and complete bullshit.
Well, and I don't know if I disagree with you, but devil's advocate here. If he believed that there's going to be some type of arrest made in the case, or some type of charges brought in the case, it could be possible that the attorney is trying to get as many extensions as possible until that happens, to somehow justify the actions of, well, you say this individual or that individual isn't a suspect, but if they can prove that they actually are suspects, whether it be Chris, Katie, or Seth, or Miss Bowersox, Mr. Bowersox, whoever's involved, right? If they can prove that one of those or two of those individuals are in fact suspects, just not openly suspects, then maybe they hope that that would change the way that they were, or she's being looked at in the case. Once again, I don't have anything to necessarily back that up, but if I'm trying to think about why the court would continue giving continuances, it could be a possibility.
But listen to what you said, that they're suspects but not open suspects. So that would, in that case, that would mean that you're privy to information that law enforcement hasn't put out, right? Which means, again, to everyone, they're still just private citizens.
That doesn't make them actually private citizens, right? Like, and this idea that if Chris and Katie don't talk out in the public, then they're not public, figures, is wild. They are absolutely public figures based on the situation of Sebastian being missing. The first time they went onto a national television show, they became public figures. The first time they jumped onto a TikTok show or a YouTube show, they became public figures. So I don't understand this theory behind, well, they're just not talking, or they're not talking to people because, of that. Now, at the end of the day, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. And that includes Betty. So until we may think she's guilty, I may think she's guilty, Clue, you might think she's guilty. But if we're going to stand behind what the law says, we have to give people their time in court.
Which she already had. I'm just going to throw that out there again, right? She already had it. Like, she had the time to appeal, and she didn't. The way that I would honestly appreciate this going down in court is if they get there and they realize that she didn't appeal within the allotted time, and he's like, oh, well, you're done, son. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't think there should be allowances for nuisances, right? I think that's how we become a society that's riddled with bullshit, right? In my opinion. Like, this is the law. The law is what it is. And just because you, in your mind, have a certain viewpoint of someone, or you think they're guilty, et cetera, doesn't mean that you can act like a fucking clown. Look at Richard Allen, right? On when he was yet to be sentenced, right? Like, the guards, I believe at times, were treating him like a guilty person, right? And I think that's an issue. I think he still has rights as a human who has not been yet proven guilty. You know what I mean? That's probably a bad analogy, but it's the only one I can think of.
Right. And I'm not taking up for Betty at all. I'm looking at the court, not Betty. Right. So I'm trying to look at what Betty's doing is pointless. You can't understand what she does. I'm looking at the court to try to figure out why the court itself is continually giving extensions. It's not Betty getting the extensions. The courts are approving them. Right. So there has to be a reason for the approval of extension.
I'm sorry, Helen. I saw it come up. Helen, happy Cluniversary. You said the game turned dangerous. What's that mean, Helen? Oh, and thank you for the super chat. I just sent you an email. Okay, I will look at it, I promise.